Story 1. I had been living with my older brother for almost 4 years, ever since I finished school. We shared the rent on an apartment because neither of us could afford to live alone. However, during the 4th year, my brother's financial situation improved and he planned to move out once the lease ended. Knowing that I couldn't afford the apartment on my own, I searched online for a roommate for several months. Eventually, I realized it would be better to find a cheaper place and move out as well. The search continued until the last month of our lease. At that point, my brother had already moved most of his belongings, and I felt immense pressure to secure a new living arrangement. However, with my extremely limited budget, finding a suitable place wasn't easy. Just when I was losing hope, I stumbled upon a listing posted by a homeowner named Evan. He was renting out a room in his house, and the rent was within my budget. I sent Evan a text expressing my interest, and within a few minutes, he responded. We scheduled a time to talk later in the day, and during the call, he explained all the details. Evan mentioned that he lived alone in the house and that I would have access to all the other rooms as well. It sounded like a great deal, so I agreed to it. A couple of weeks later, I packed all my belongings into a U-Haul and drove down to Evan's house. Throughout the time leading up to the move, Evan and I had been exchanging texts and calls. He even sent me pictures of the house, but I hadn't had a chance to see it in person yet. I arrived at the house around noon and parked in the driveway. It was a small house, but it looked pleasant from the outside. Evan was waiting for me in the garage, waving me over. He gave me a quick tour of the house and helped me unload all my stuff into the room I would be occupying. Evan seemed like an ordinary man in his mid-30s, about 10 years older than me, but I didn't mind the age difference. However, he wasn't the most skilled conversationalist and appeared somewhat shy. Once we finished moving everything inside, I returned the U-Haul and took an Uber back to the house. By that time, it was almost 8 p.m. and I was exhausted. Evan was sitting on the couch watching TV. I informed him that I was going to bed early and headed to my room. Overall, the place seemed decent and I was content with it. I unpacked a bit, set up my bed, and by 9 o'clock I was ready to sleep. As I walked toward my bedroom door to lock it and turn off the lights, I noticed that the doorknob was empty. Perplexed, I opened the door and stepped into the living room. I asked Evan why the bedroom door locked from the outside. He appeared bewildered and admitted that he had never noticed it before. However, he assured me that he would switch the lock around the following day. Although it struck me as odd, I shrugged it off and returned to my room, too tired to dwell on the matter. I climbed into bed and quickly fell asleep. However, in the middle of the night, I woke up to the sound of someone moving around in the kitchen. Assuming it was Evan getting a drink or something, I closed my eyes again, intending to go back to sleep. A minute later, I heard footsteps approaching my room, but they abruptly stopped as the person reached my door. Curiosity and a sense of unease compelled me to open my eyes and glance at the door. To my horror, I watched as Evan stood outside my room, silently observing. He stood there for about 15 seconds before I heard a distinct click, indicating that he had locked my door from the outside. My heart dropped and a cold shiver ran down my spine. Panic setting as I realized that the man I had just met had deliberately trapped me inside the room. With a surge of adrenaline, I mustered the courage to confront him. I called out to Evan, demanding that he open the door immediately. It only took a moment before I heard hurried footsteps, and Evan rushed out of his room towards my door. I could sense his hand on the door, but he hesitated for a few unbearable seconds before finally unlocking it. Without wasting any time, I swung the door open and confronted him, demanding an explanation for his unsettling behavior. Evan stammered, struggling to find the right words. He claimed that he only wanted to ensure his own safety because he didn't know me well enough. While I understood his concern, locking someone in a room was far from a reasonable approach. Fueled by a mixture of fear and anger, I informed Evan that I would be packing up and leaving first thing in the morning. Determined to stay vigilant, I spent the rest of the night wide awake, sitting on the couch in the living room, counting down the hours until the U-Haul store opened. As soon as 9 o'clock rolled around, I glanced down the hallway and noticed that Evan's bedroom door remained closed, possibly indicating that he was still asleep. I seized the opportunity and swiftly made my way to the U-Haul truck. Determined to leave this unsettling situation behind, I drove straight to the house. Upon my arrival, I noticed that Evan's bedroom door was now open. I called out his name, but there was no response. Intrigued and slightly unnerved by this turn of events, I cautiously approached his room and peeked inside. To my astonishment, the room was completely empty. There was no sign of Evan anywhere. A wave of confusion washed over me as I surveyed the room, trying to make sense of the situation. Things were becoming increasingly bizarre, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Sensing the urgency to escape, I shifted my focus to gathering my remaining belongings. For the next 2 hours, I powered through, packing boxes and disassembling my bed. With only 2 boxes left, I dashed inside to grab another one, but suddenly Evan appeared in the doorway. "Move," I commanded, my voice laced with a mixture of fear and determination. Evan stood there, his expression devoid of any emotion. After a few seconds that felt like an eternity, He finally stepped aside, allowing me to pass. I hurriedly rushed past him, shoving the box into the U-Haul. As I prepared to close the back of the truck, Evan interrupted with an unsettling gesture. He held out the last box, the one I had left behind. For a moment, I hesitated, but I reluctantly accepted it from him and quickly loaded it onto the truck. With my heart pounding, I felt Evan's eyes on me as I secured the back of the U-Haul. Just as I turned to face him, he unexpectedly grabbed the door and began pulling it down, attempting to close me inside. Instinct kicked in, and I managed to stop him before the door could even reach halfway. In a surge of adrenaline, I pushed Evan to the ground and sprinted towards the driver's seat. As I drove away from that eerie house, I couldn't fully comprehend what had transpired, but one thing was certain, something was gravely amiss. Thankfully, my brother kindly offered me a temporary place to stay until I found a new, safer place to live. I couldn't shake off the disturbing events that unfolded in Evan's house. It was clear that there was something deeply wrong with him, and I needed to distance myself as far as possible. During my stay with my brother, I delved into researching Evan's background. To my shock, I discovered a trail of unsettling information. There were reports of strange incidents involving previous tenants who had rented from Evan, stories of bizarre behavior, unexplained disappearances, and a general sense of unease surrounded him. Haunted by these revelations, I knew I had narrowly escaped a potentially dangerous situation. Determined to protect others from experiencing the same horrors, I decided to report Evan to the authorities. I compiled all the evidence I had gathered and shared it with the police, hoping they would thoroughly investigate him. In the meantime, I continued my search for a new place to live, making sure to prioritize safety and security. I sought recommendations from trusted friends and extensively researched potential roommates and landlords. The experience with Evan had made me cautious, and I vowed never to ignore any red flags again. Eventually, I found a suitable apartment with a responsible and trustworthy roommate. It was a relief to settle into a peaceful and secure environment. However, the harrowing memories of my time in Evan's house continued to haunt me. I couldn't help but wonder about the fate of those who had encountered him before me. Months went by and the investigation into Evan's activities gained momentum. More victims came forward, sharing their chilling experiences and validating the concerns I had raised. It turned out that Evan had a history of manipulating and terrorizing his tenants. He had carefully crafted a facade of normalcy while concealing a dark and twisted side. The authorities eventually apprehended Evan, and he was charged with multiple offenses, including false imprisonment, harassment, and assault. His arrest brought closure to those affected by his disturbing actions and offered them a chance to heal. Reflecting on my ordeal, I realized how crucial it is to trust one's instincts and conduct thorough research before entering into any living arrangement. The world can be filled with both wonderful and dangerous individuals, and it is our responsibility to safeguard ourselves against potential threats. The experience taught me valuable lessons about resilience, intuition, and the importance of maintaining a strong support network. I vowed to share my story, raising awareness about the importance of personal safety and encouraging others to prioritize their well-being in every aspect of life. As I embarked on a new chapter, I carried the scars of that terrifying experience, but also the strength and wisdom gained from overcoming it. The horror I endured served as a constant reminder to stay vigilant, trust my instincts, and embrace the power of self-preservation. Story 2. Last year, in the midst of winter, I finally moved into my new house. It was a momentous occasion for me as it marked my first home purchase. The house was a beautiful and spacious abode, complete with a sizable backyard. However, the process of moving proved to be quite a challenge, as I had to tackle everything on my own. On that chilly morning, I arrived with a moving truck and diligently cleared the snow off the driveway. With determination, I began the arduous task of unloading boxes and furniture, making countless trips back and forth. By the time evening rolled around, exhaustion had settled in, and I found myself locking up the truck, intending to return it the following day. As the night descended, I realized that my bed was not yet set up, so I resigned myself to sleep on the less than comfortable couch downstairs. While attempting to drift off, I was startled by an unfamiliar noise emanating from outside. It sounded as if someone was approaching my porch. Curiosity and a hint of unease prompted me to sit up, fixated on the front door. Strangely, the noise ceased just moments before reaching the entrance. Unable to discern its origin, I eventually dismissed it as mere figments of my imagination and succumbed to sleep. Morning arrived, and to my dismay, I discovered that the front door was unlocked. I distinctly remembered securing it before retiring for the night. Anxious, I scanned the surroundings for any signs of an intruder but found none. Determined to maintain a sense of normalcy, I dropped off the truck and spent the entire day unpacking and arranging furniture. As twilight approached, I returned home after a quick dinner, only to stumble upon an eerie sight in the snow outside my house. Footprints marked a pristine blanket leading straight to my front door. I scrutinized the area, attempting to trace their origin, but the tracks abruptly terminated at the sidewalk, which had already been shoveled. In an effort to calm my escalating unease, I reasoned that it could have been a well-intentioned neighbor attempting to make a friendly introduction. Before retiring to bed that night, I double-checked all the doors and windows, ensuring their proper locking. Yet, as I approached the front door, my heart sank as I discovered it unlocked once more. Perplexed, I tested the lock with my key, verifying its functionality. Everything seemed in order, and I couldn't fathom why this unsettling occurrence persisted. Despite the absence of any signs of intrusion or missing belongings, the constant breach of my home's security sent chills down my spine. Seeking solace in the sanctity of my bedroom, I decided to take a shower before bed. As the water cascaded over me, a soft sound resonated from downstairs, barely audible but distinct enough to grab my attention. The accumulation of recent events compelled me to investigate. Clad in haste, I cautiously descended the stairs, my senses heightened. Peering around the corner, a horrifying sight greeted me. A man standing motionless in the hallway, the front door ajar behind him. Shock and fear rendered me immobile for a brief moment before sheer panic propelled me to sprint back upstairs, desperately locking myself in my room. The sound of footsteps reverberated through the rooms below as the intruder continued to roam freely. Seizing the opportunity, I contacted the police, relaying the harrowing events unfolding within my home. Time felt like an eternity as I anxiously awaited their arrival, each passing second amplifying my terror. Eventually, after what seemed like an eternity, the front door slammed shut, followed by the fading footsteps of the trespasser retreating from the premises. To my dismay, the police investigation yielded no substantial leads, leaving me with a lingering sense of vulnerability. Determined to enhance my home's security, I followed the officer's advice and installed a comprehensive network of surveillance cameras. Additionally, I took the precautionary measure of changing all the locks on my doors. Days turned into weeks, and the unsettling incident remained etched in my mind. Each passing moment was shrouded in a sense of apprehension, as I couldn't shake the feeling that the intruder might return. It felt as though I was living in a constant state of anticipation. My senses heightened at all times. The newfound surveillance system provided a semblance of reassurance, but the fear persisted. Struggling to regain a sense of normalcy, I sought solace in the company of friends and family. They offered their support and understanding, urging me to prioritize my safety and well-being. Their presence provided a temporary respite from the haunting memories of that fateful encounter. Despite my best efforts to resume a normal routine, the intrusion continued to cast a dark shadow over my life. The nights were the most challenging, as sleep evaded me, and even the faintest sound sent shivers down my spine. Every creak of the floorboards or gust of wind against the windows intensified my paranoia. It felt as though the walls of my home were closing in, suffocating me with their silent secrets. As time wore on, I decided to seek professional help to overcome the trauma that had engulfed my life. Therapy sessions became a regular part of my routine, providing a safe space to voice my fears, anxieties, and the lingering trauma of the intrusion. Through counseling, I slowly began to rebuild my shattered sense of security, learning coping mechanisms to navigate the constant state of alertness. In an effort to reclaim a sense of control, I became proactive in my quest for answers. I delved into research about the history of the house, reaching out to previous owners and neighbors, hoping to uncover any clues or past incidents that might shed light on the intruder's intentions. However, my inquiries yielded no significant information, leaving me grappling with unanswered questions and a gnawing sense of uncertainty. Months passed, and gradually, the intensity of my fear began to wane. I realized that I couldn't let the intruder's actions define my life or dictate my sense of security. With newfound strength and determination, I made a conscious decision to focus on healing and moving forward. Over time, my home transformed from a fortress of fear into a sanctuary of resilience. I implemented additional security measures, reinforced doors and windows, and joined the Neighborhood Watch program, fostering a sense of community and vigilance among my neighbors. Together, we kept a watchful eye on our surroundings, ensuring the safety of our homes and shared spaces. While the scars of the intrusion remained, I gradually regained a semblance of peace and normalcy. Each day brought a renewed sense of strength and resilience, a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity. The haunting memories of that dreadful encounter would always serve as a reminder to cherish the safety and security we often take for granted. And as I stood in my transformed home, surrounded by the warmth and familiarity that once eluded me, I vowed to live each day without fear, embracing life's uncertainties with unwavering courage. Story 3. I moved across the state to a newly built house, eager for a fresh start after my previous landlord abruptly ended our lease. Despite the unsettling circumstances, I embraced the opportunity to lease this new place, hopeful for a peaceful and fulfilling life. However, the tranquility I sought was quickly shattered by a peculiar neighbor residing across the street. From the moment I arrived, I noticed his unwavering gaze fixated on me. The middle-aged man seemed perpetually confined within the walls of his house, never venturing beyond its boundaries. At first, I dismissed his behavior as mere curiosity about the new arrival in the neighborhood. Yet, as his surveillance persisted, an unsettling sensation crept over me, signaling that something was amiss. He never engaged in conversations, never wore a smile, and rarely left his house. His constant vigilance and peculiar presence left me feeling uneasy. I would glimpse his figure through my window, often finding him lingering in his driveway during odd hours of the night. The inexplicable nature of his actions began to haunt my thoughts. One fateful night, as I prepared to retire to bed, a scraping noise infiltrated the air. I cautiously peered outside and witnessed my neighbor dragging a substantial ladder across his lawn. The late hour puzzled me, as I couldn't fathom why he would engage in such activities under the cover of darkness. Attempting to quell my growing paranoia, I convinced myself it was a product of my overactive imagination, a consequence of adjusting to a new environment. Nonetheless, my anxiety persisted, reaching its peak the following morning when I discovered him stationed at the end of my driveway, intently gazing through my window. I swiftly closed the curtain, attempting to block his intrusive presence from my sight, but an icy shiver crawled down my spine. The proximity of his watchful eyes and this intrusion into my personal space unsettled me greatly. Taking evasive action, I quickly entered my car, pulling out of the garage to escape the oppressive atmosphere. As I drove away, his eyes remained fixed on me, an unnerving spectacle that underscored the gravity of the situation. The brewing tension escalated, unleashing a series of distressing events. One night, while I lay in bed, the unmistakable sound of footsteps resonated from my fenced backyard. Alarmed, I sprang out of bed, peering out the window, only to be greeted by an eerie silence. Waiting in anticipation for any further indication of an intruder's presence, I remained on edge for what felt like an eternity. Eventually, I cautiously approached the window once more, revealing a shadowy figure lurking at the far end of the yard. Although the darkness obscured their features, their intense scrutiny directed towards me was unmistakable. With trembling hands, I contacted the authorities, recounting the chilling experiences involving my neighbor. However, without concrete evidence of wrongdoing or a criminal record, they could offer little assistance, leaving me to fend for myself unless a more severe incident occurred. Determined to protect myself, I fortified my home, meticulously locking doors and windows, while minimizing my time spent outside. Nevertheless, even within the confines of my sanctuary, I couldn't shake the persistent feeling of unease. The neighbor's unnerving presence continued to cast a long shadow over my daily existence. As the weeks ticked by, I contemplated breaking my lease, unable to bear the weight of the mounting fear and anxiety. Then, the unimaginable happened. Returning home late from work one night, fatigue weighed heavy on my shoulders. I sought solace in sleep, only to be awakened by a loud thud reverberating against the side of my house. Panic surged through my veins as I cautiously approached the window, slowly pulling back the curtains. To my horror, mere inches from the glass, my neighbor's face loomed, distorted with a twisted mixture of curiosity and malevolence. He had positioned himself on a ladder, attempting to peer into the sanctuary of my bedroom. Shocked and terror-stricken, I recoiled, my scream piercing the night. Sensing my discovery, he hastily descended the ladder and vanished into the darkness. With trembling hands, I dialed emergency services once more. Within moments, the police arrived, capturing the intruder as he attempted to retrieve the ladder. Though he refused to admit his sinister intentions, the evidence spoke volumes. The unsettling encounters I had endured were not figments of my imagination, but the manifestations of a disturbed individual fixated on invading my privacy. In the days that followed, my neighbor's true nature came to light. A concerned neighbor, who had also fallen victim to his voyeuristic tendencies, recounted their own encounters with this unsettling figure. They revealed instances of witnessing him peering through their windows, an ominous presence that had plagued their lives before my arrival. Regret filled their voice as they pondered whether reporting him earlier could have spared me from enduring such torment. The revelation of a shared experience brought a sense of relief, knowing I wasn't alone in my ordeal. Yet, it also deepened the profound unease that had settled within me. The violation of my personal space and the unwavering fear that gripped my heart eroded any sense of security I once had. Determined to reclaim my peace of mind, I implemented drastic measures to fortify my home. Security cameras adorned every corner, their watchful lenses capturing every movement. Alarm systems were installed, their shrill sirens serving as a warning to any potential intruders. I reinforced doors and windows, transforming my house into a fortress against the outside world. Still, despite these precautions, the haunting memory of my neighbor's relentless pursuit lingered. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind outside sent shivers down my spine. Each passing day became a test of resilience as I navigated the thin line between caution and paranoia. The legal system, too, had its limitations. Without concrete evidence of a crime, my neighbor remained free. His presence a constant reminder of the vulnerability I had endured. Yet, I refused to succumb to the shadows cast by his actions. Seeking solace in a support group for survivors of similar encounters, I found strength and understanding among those who had faced their own battles against unseen terrors. Time became both friend and foe, gradually healing the wounds of my harrowing experiences while leaving scars that would forever mark my psyche. Therapy sessions and self-defense classes became my lifelines, empowering me to reclaim control in life without the constant fear that had threatened to consume me. Now, as I reflect upon the nightmare I endured, I am reminded of the importance of vigilance and communal support. The horrors that lurk behind the doors of seemingly ordinary houses serve as a chilling reminder that evil can reside anywhere. Yet, by banding together, by refusing to let fear define us, we can emerge stronger, defiant in the face of darkness. Though the chapter of my encounter with the menacing neighbor has drawn to a close, its echoes continue to reverberate within me. I remain vigilant, forever watchful, determined to protect myself and others from the malevolence that may silently encroach upon our lives. And while the scars may never fade entirely, they serve as a testament to my resilience and unwavering spirit, a reminder that I survived and will continue to thrive despite the horrors that once plagued my existence.